Faith is belief in Allah and the messengers, the angels and the final day and the holy scriptures. To believe in destiny, that good and bad both come from Him, and the resurrection. There is no God but Allah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله.
He started studying textual criticism, and being that I was his best friend, I started studying textual criticism. My friend came to me one day and he asked me a question that I had never really even pondered upon. He asked me, he said, "Have you ever read the Bible?" And I said, no, in church. I mean, yeah, we've all read the Bible in church. But he's like, no, have you ever read it? You know, like you read a book beginning to end. I said, no, I don't know anybody that's read, nobody that I knew had ever read it, beginning Genesis 1:1 to the end. He said, but this is the inerrant word of God, as we are taught. This is our instructions on earth. Why haven't we read it? He said, let us start with Genesis 1:1. And let's read the Bible and let's see what God says to us. There were a few things that I had learned from the Old Testament that I wanted to keep in mind when I started to read the New Testament. I learned, number one, that God was one in a unique sense. I read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. All of it was saying the same to me. I said, I was thinking to myself, this is not what I was taught about Christianity. And started to read the writings of Paul the Apostle. And things went from this to this. It went from one way to another way. It went completely flipped, turned around. The entire teachings went from obeying God, worshiping God, following the law, to worshiping Jesus Christ and abolishing the law completely. So I went and asked him about all this stuff I saw. And he told me, he said, what you have is a book written by men. And he said, and after all these years, you have a book now that is compiled from all of this, written by the hands of men that still have men's fingerprints left on it. And that's what you have. You have an imperfect book that is only perfected through faith. There was one litmus test that I used for every religion. And whenever I met them, or the people or whatever about this religion, I would always ask them, do you have a book? Do you have a book? Because another thing I had come to the conclusion of is that if your religion is true, you should be able to tangibly hand me something and show me that this religion is true. I believed in God with no form of religion. I prayed to God on the floor on my hands and knees, because this is how all the books of God, this is how the Bible, the Torah, the New Testament, the Bhagavad Gita, all of these scriptures that I ever read, they said that this is how the men of God prayed. I was looking in the religious section in the library at school, and there was a book about Islam. It said that Muslims were people who worshipped a moon god named Allah, who lived in a box in the desert in Saudi Arabia. Remember, the one thing that really caught my attention was the whole chapter on jihad, where it said that Muslims were allowed to kill non-Muslims at any time, at any place, without discretion, and it was an honorable act, and not only would they go to heaven before it, but they would get 70 virgins on the way. You know, so I closed the book on Islam, put it back on the shelf, and marked off Islam off my little list of religions. He said, have you ever heard of Islam? I said, yes, I've heard all about Islam. He was like, okay, so what do you think of it? I said, what do you mean what I think of it? That's probably the worst religion I've ever seen on the face of the planet. He's like, why? And he's like, but I'm a Muslim. I was like, man, stop playing. After the adhan, and he started his khutbah. Inna alhamdulillah nahmaruhu wa I said, oh my God. I said, I bet you he's talking about me. You know, and he's being forceful. You know, he was getting loud and banging on the minbar, and he's pointing in my direction. You know, I'm like, oh man, I gotta get out of here really quick, you know. You have a book, can you give me? He said, yes, we have a book. I said, it's called the Quran. I said, can I read it? Is it in English? Can I read it? He said, sure, you can read it. And then he tried to explain it to me a little bit how it came by. I said, nah, just give me